roof of the Gold Sands is raised. Everyone here knows what that could mean to this football.
Good evening, and there was me thinking that the weekend is a good time to relax. Not the case. It's just been announced in the last hour and a half that Andrew Surman and Simon Francis have left the club. From the official website, it says they will not be offered new contracts. The long-serving pair, whose contracts expired at the end of July, they've been an integral part of the club's rise up the football pyramid, culminating in a 5-year stay in the Premier League. However, following the Cherries relegation last month, it's been agreed that both players will be free to find new clubs, and the club wholeheartedly thanks them for their incredible commitment over the past decade. So it's been a bit of a mad weekend, hasn't it? We've had the news of Aaron Ramsdale, and now it's this news that, did we expect it? Very difficult to say. We thought we were going in a new direction, but then we had JT, but then getting rid of the dead wood, so to speak, players that are in the twilight of their career. Maybe that backs up this new direction or the new ideas that JT might be taking us in. It's a very difficult one, but we're going to try to work out, with the help of you, what is happening at the football club, and can we expect any players to come in? Because at the moment, there have been, 5 or 6 that have left, and no one's come in through the door. There are rumours about Callum Wilson and maybe Dwight Gale and Matt Ritchie are swapped with that. But as yet, we don't know much other than what the club has said. So there we go. At the bottom of the screen, you can grab a pair of headphones, go to afcbpodcast.com/take part. It's slightly different to usual this time. When you click the link, it gives me a bit more control to get people in and out the room quicker. You'll have to authenticate with either YouTube or Facebook, but once you do that, it'll be the same, and you'll be logged in to the room, same as normal, and then you can react. So the first person that I'm going to bring in today is Cherries fan Keith Thomas, who was on the last show. Keith, how are you?
Not too bad, Sam. Had a good Sunday?
Yeah, I was. It was a relaxing one up until this point, and then I get loads of tweets saying, "Can you do a live stream?" So yeah, here I am.
It's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? It's like the end of an era. Really does feel like that at the moment, and a bit unsettling. But I'm sure we'll be talking about that later.
And I think unsettling is the word, really. And there is no time to relax right now, because all of us are questioning what on earth is going on during the week. There's never any news announced, and then Saturday morning, Ramsdale, a bid's been accepted for 18.5 million, and now 2 club stalwarts that have seen us rise up through the leagues and integral in our championship promotion in 2014-15 are now leaving the club. How do you feel about that?
We needed leadership. We certainly missed them on the pitch in terms of, certainly Frano, in terms of like giving some direction on the pitch. You can't keep asking Cookie to do that, and Nathan Ackey's a quiet guy, but no one else was stepping up to the plate. In terms of performance, it sort of warrants it, but in terms of their stature in the club and what they could do in bringing on new players, if we're going to go for the youth academy, I don't know. I'll be interested to hear what other people say. But I'm a little bit unsettled, and certainly with the news of Rambo leaving yesterday is sort of like, well, where are we going at the moment?
Yeah, well, that's right, and that's the status that we don't really know, because at the moment we're seeing lots of people leaving the door, but not much sign of the players that are going to be competing for places next season. Also in the chat, yeah, sorry,
I was interested with the Dwight Gale, Ritchie. I'm sure we'll be talking about that, but they're getting on a bit as well. So I don't know. And is it a purge of Eddie's players? Is this JT trying to also put his mark on the squad? That's also an interesting discussion as well. I'm sure we'll be getting into that tonight.
Well, exactly. It's quite an interesting one as far as I'm concerned, because you've got sort of quite a mix, really, of opinions. Of course, when Eddie left the club and suggested a new direction, we were all very disappointed that, JT, well, no, I'd say that there was a certain section of fans that were disappointed with JT's appointment, but most of us have now accepted it. And now that he is getting rid of the players that have arguably been their twilight of the career and barely featured in the last season and a bit for us. There seems to be a lot of outpouring of emotion and questioning the decision, but maybe we should embrace it. I don't know. We're going to speak to Kirk Tovey, who's with us as well, AFC Bournemouth's Gary Neville, as he's got on his handle there. And Kirk, how are you this evening?
Unless the club's pulling the wool over our eyes and they've got some magical plan prepared for next week, I think this is absolutely bonkers. We needed some stability after Eddie's left. These players can still do it in the Championship. You need a decent squad and a squad in depth to tackle the Championship. It's just confused me. I mean, Frano came out, I think last week or the week before, and said he would literally accept any contract that was put on the table. He wanted to stay. So,
but, I mean, Kirk, you were the one that was heralding a new direction and wanting the club to go in a new direction. Obviously, we went with the JT, which you felt was part of the old direction. But as a man, he's got new ideas, and maybe getting rid of the players that have served us so well and so brilliantly, an end of an amazing era, is not exactly a bad thing, and we can bring in the new young players that perhaps you might have wanted.
And I sort of moved on from that because obviously JT's in now. My concern now, looking from an outside point of view, is we still don't know what pulling power JT has. Now, those players are reporting to training tomorrow. What Eddie's left, and for whatever reason he walked, for whatever reason he gave, we're now selling our best top young players, potential England number one. So it's not that we're keeping our young players and offloading our aging players. Okay, we're now letting our players go that are the heart of the club and our longest serving players, and let's be honest, probably the two ultimate pros at our club. What's the direction? I'm confused. If they came out and said, well, we're letting Frano and Surman go, but we're going to keep our best young players, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I just think they had another year in them, and I think they had the Championship experience, and it's bonkers.
Patience is a virtue, Kirk. Do you have any? Because it's almost like you're wanting everything to be happening, right away. Whereas, we can only do things in a certain order. And as some people are saying on the chat, that, well, look, there's no room for sentiment. And I know it's not the perfect send-off for them, but, surely bowing out of the Premier League and is, pretty much, good enough. Would it have been good to keep on two pros that maybe wouldn't cut it in terms of fitness in the Championship? And as a result, we're freeing up those squad places to have some younger talent come through, either, externally or promoted from the youth.
And I get that, but the Championship has to be respected. And if you don't respect the Championship, it will chew you up and spit you out. And when I say that we know Francis and Surman are not starters, but it's a 46-game season plus cup games, they will play many matches in the Championship and they will help us. And that's what I can't understand. Those players that are going to return to training tomorrow are going to be confused. Why is Eddie gone? Why is those two pros that probably a lot of the young players looked up to in our squad? I don't see who's going to gather them in the changing room tomorrow. Who's going to go, come on, we're going to have a good season. We're going to get through this. And as I said, what players are going to be looking at us going, well, Eddie's gone. Francis and Surman are gone. They're selling Rambo, one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. I'd love people to tell me who would sign for us right now, and apart from we've got a lovely beach.
But like Ashley on the chat just said on Periscope, watching on Twitter. Hi Ashley, hope you're doing well. If letting Surman and Frano keeps Lerma, what would your equation be then? Would you say, yeah, he's probably right?
As long as Lerma doesn't miss 10 games through suspension, I see where he's coming from. But we've got to look at the squad. The Championship, you require a squad, and they were going to be squad players. Now, with them two going out, we were wafer thin with defenders last season. Yeah. Now we've just let two go. We've let Ake and Francis go. So if they've got a plan that we're going to be bringing in 4 or 5 players and bringing some up from the development squad, fair enough. But I can't see that at the moment unless anyone else can.
Kurt, what will make you happy?
Well, I don't want to go back to it because I feel like I've moved on from it. But obviously, when I was going on about bringing in a fresh face, it wasn't to upset the apple cart and clear everyone out. That was not what I was saying. I just felt we needed a bit of an outside influence. And that was probably the only negative I'd put to Eddie Howe in his tenure, is that he didn't have enough outside influences to give him a different outlook. Okay, so I was looking for maybe a couple of fresh faces to come in with the current backroom staff that we had. Now we're stuck with JT. I'm now almost like, well, let's have a little bit of stability. Let's keep Frano for a season, Surman. I even said I'd bring back Pugh. Pugh is a free transfer. You're not talking, a lot's come up in the last few weeks about money. So if we're worried about money, surely Pugh's a no-brainer.
Very interesting. We're going to bring in Richard Jackson now. And just to say, Morgan is here as well. We've got Louis and Reece standing by. So we will be with you very shortly. But Richard, how are you doing, buddy? You all right?
Hi, Sam. Hi, guys.
Hiya.
And nice to see you for your Back of the Net live debut. Of course, you've been on one of our vlogs before with Mark. But yeah, what's your reaction to this whole weekend? Because obviously we had the horrible feeling of having the spine, well, the bottom of our spine, what's that, the coccyx? I don't know, but Ramsdale was out and perhaps on his way after an £18.5 million bid has been reluctantly accepted. And now this news with regards to Frano and Surman.
Well, I suppose Rambo going was almost inevitable, really. I think the writing was on the wall a long time ago with that. Yeah, this is a bit of a shock. I think probably most of us thought they could do a good job for us, Frano and Surman in the Championship, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, they're not going to be with us next year. I'd just like to say it's really sad with all the players going that we haven't been able to sort of be at games and sort of give them a proper send-off, but that's just the way it is at the moment. I think possibly this is JT trying to exert a bit of being his own man in the situation, because obviously Frano and Surman probably quite loud voices in the dressing room, probably be quite influential, and maybe this is JT trying to break from the past, break from the Eddie days, and just making everybody know that he's his own man. This is how the club's going to be in the future going forward. It's also obviously very negative news that we're getting at the moment. This is only half of the picture. We've still got to wait and see what's going to happen in terms of players coming in. So I don't think we should all jump to conclusions and get too despondent at the moment. But yeah, it's not great. But it will. Hopefully things will pan out in the next week or two, particularly once the players are back.
Jason Tindall has always been known as knee-jerk on the touchline, always getting in the face of the fourth official, and we don't know what his managerial credentials are like now. But do you think it's almost, do you feel as though it could be a fact that he's just making a statement of intent for the sake of it?
I don't know about for the sake of it, but yeah, I think there probably is an element of making a statement and letting people know that he's in charge. Eddie's not there anymore, much as many of us wish he still was, but he's just not, and we've got to accept that. And inevitably, when we got relegated, this was going to happen. It's going to be a huge period of change for us all. We just got to accept that. Hopefully, when we get some better news, we can embrace the change as well. So while it's sad and disappointing to see those players go, I think it's too early to jump in at the deep end and say, oh God, everything's bad, everything's terrible. Let's just wait and see what happens in terms of players coming in. I mean, you mentioned before about the story of Richie and Gale coming back and Callum Wilson going to Newcastle. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. But these are the type of things that are going to happen over the next couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever. And let's wait and see what happens before we actually jump to any conclusions about, oh, everything's terrible, everything's wonderful.
Yeah, Tom Jordan, who you probably saw his message on screen, Gary, saying that he is on your side. Frano and Drew would have added vital experience and squad depth. Keith, from what you've heard so far, any changes of how you feel based on what you've heard?
I think Kirk's making some really interesting points there. My concern is the leadership void that's going to be apparent unless we're going to get some experienced players. Now, Matt Ritchie, he can do a job. Dwight Gale can do a job, but it's that strong character that we really needed last season. When you think about the Watford game, you think about the Burnley game, a couple of players who can lift the spirits, and bring a bit of direction on the pitch. And I think Eddie didn't have that. And how are we going to replace that? I'm not sure. I don't see the strong characters in the remaining squad. I mean, Jefferson Lerman's an outstanding player, but his first language isn't English. I'm sure, in given time, he might be a leader going forward, whether with us or another club. But it's that leadership void that we are desperately needing. And I think Sirs could have done a job there. And Frano, if you saw his podcast with the AFCB TV, he was excellent, really excellent when he was chatting to, Cookie and what have you. And you could see that the nucleus of the leadership is there. Now, I accept they're not going to be the frontline players, but it's a long old season, and they could have done it in the cup. We need a cup run as well. I mean, we haven't had that for a long time. That lack of leadership is really concerning. And with Rambo going, who was vocal at the back as well and showed his passion, showed what he wanted to do in terms of getting the team motivated, that's all gone as far as I can see. And the experience-free transfers are going very quickly. So I fully understand. JT wants to put his stamp on it, and I fully accept that. And as I say, I'll remain positive with him. The other thing is, who's the AM? Who's the assistant manager?
And
the structure as well. That's a
surprising thing. Yeah, it is. It is really surprising. And just looking at what Peter Rutzler from The Athletic has tweeted, he said that he understands that Simon Francis was offered a backroom role, but he was keen to keep playing. So, and I can understand it from his point of view. But what's your reaction to that, Keith?
I think he would have been brilliant in the backroom role. I don't know if he's taken his badges yet, but he has that sort of stature in the club. I could see him potentially in a few years' time, assistant manager, and then moving up the chain. If that's what we wanted to do, I would have said to him, okay, maybe a player coach role, and work with the under 23s, help out. I don't know what's going to happen with Weymouth being successful. Is now, are we going to be losing? Maybe not Sean Cooper, but it's all a bit mad at the moment. It really is. Yeah, it's that leadership void in the club now. Now we're really looking rather thin in leadership roles, and that's my real concern. And the Championship is a dog of a league to get out of, and you need those strong players.
It is. It's almost like Christmas, where you're sort of opening up and there's less and less chocolates to eat out of your advent calendar, and you're just wondering which one's going to go next. And as Morgan just said on the chat, every day we are going to wake up fearing someone leaving now. Sammy Nell puts a different slant on it, saying maybe the assistant manager will be announced tomorrow once the players have been told. We don't know that. What we're going to do is bring in a couple more. Keith, I'm going to put you on standby for a bit, if that's okay.
No worries, fella.
You're welcome to come back in or go back out, or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'll be with you all the way through.
Good man. Excellent to hear. That was Keith Thomas there, who's going to be back later. And someone who's been patiently waiting is Morgan Scott, who is here. We've also got Reese and Louis, and you boys are coming in very shortly. And, we will rotate as much as we can. And if you want to take part, remember, just go to afcbpodcast.com/take part. That will redirect you to StreamYard, where we broadcast this. Make sure you're with headphones. Be ready with your camera, and then we'll bring you on as soon as we can. But Morgan, crazy weekend, eh?
Yeah, well, we start with the fact that we have just lost two of our leaders. Football is about playing the game, but it's also about leadership and dedication. And with Andrew Surman and club captain Simon Francis, now it does come as a surprise to me that they have left. However, when we are being linked to people like Howie Wilson, that was rumoured on Twitter today for 20 million, it's a bit concerning what direction AFC Bournemouth are going to go in. So far within the last 14 days or so, we have lost Eddie Howe. We have appointed Jason Tindall. We have lost our best player in Nathan Ake. Ramsdale looking more and more likely like he's going to Sheffield United with that £18.5 million move. So it's going to be a very, very difficult situation to see what direction then players are reporting in 13, 14 hours time. And right now, I don't know who's going to run the dressing room. Completely agree with what Bournemouth's version of Gary Neville saying. So I'm not sure what we're going to do, if I'm honest with you. And for a club not far away from the season starting, this is quite worrying times for AFC Bournemouth.
It's quite strange, actually, Richard, isn't it? Because we said how continuity is important. Some people thought a fresh direction was the way forward, but then I think most of us came together and said, well, maybe it's the lesser of two evils by having someone he's inexperienced in this sort of managerial role, but it keeps some continuity going. But then you look at the players out there now, all the players that are disappearing, and you think, well, there's probably not going to be much continuity. Rambo gone, Boric gone, Ake gone, Surman gone, Frano gone. Moore will go next week as well, by the looks of it. And it's going to feel like, when they have the training sessions and then half the squad's off at international duty, it's going to feel a bit like that, unless they bring in some players, because it's going to feel very quiet.
But I think this is inevitable, Sam. I mean, I don't see how any of us can think that, 3 weeks ago we were still playing football, 4 weeks from now we'll be starting again. Things have been condensed into a very short period of time. We've lost our manager, we've lost some key players, we've been relegated from the Premier League. Things are going to be difficult. Things are going to be disrupted at the moment. And all we're seeing at the moment is the negative side of things, with people leaving and the change of manager at the top. We have got that continuity in terms of JT is still there. Whether that pans out to be a good or bad thing, none of us really know. But we're just going to have to put up with this uncertainty and this feeling of unease at the moment. And hopefully things will change. Things will turn around in the next few weeks when we start seeing players come in. I know this is what I said before, but I genuinely think that's the case. We can't expect things to just carry on as they were before and things to just trundle along and everyone's going to be happy and nothing's going to change. Things will change and we've got to accept that.
And we've got the latest rumour that's come through, and it's Ed Morris saying Cherry Bear could be off to Poole Town next. We just don't know. Well, who knows? It kind of feels like it could be like that. Yeah, Morgan, I will, because obviously you got a point to make. However, we have got Louis who's standing by, and Reese as well. So I'm going to bring you two in. And Louis, hope you're doing okay. Reese, how's it going, mate? Louis, start off with you. Crazy weekend, Rambo gone, and then two of our longest serving players gone.
Yeah, can hardly believe it. As in, for sure, he's definitely putting his stamp on the club, definitely going in a new direction. Wouldn't say it's the direction I'd have gone, but I guess maybe we need to cut the wages, but I can't see how those two of the taking out the old guard, taking out another defender from our team is exactly going to be the right way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing it does do though, Louis, is it gets rid of two of the older players in our squad, and it brings the average age down a fair bit. So maybe his focus is perhaps on youth.
Yeah, it does seem that's the case. So I guess if he's got, I'm sure he's got plans that we're unaware of. Because if we're not bringing in other players to shore up the team and give us some leadership, then I don't see the point of that.
And you know what? There's other things. Obviously, we're reading into social media statuses way too much. And I was pointed out by Paul Cameron and Tony earlier on our WhatsApp chat that players should be getting themselves ready to be back playing at the Vitality. The weather was horrendous today. Josh King posted a lovely picture or video on Instagram doing some football with his son, you know, like in the sun, lovely blue skies. He's obviously abroad. Is he going to be there tomorrow? I think not. And does that mean that he's going to be going soon? Yeah, you know, perhaps we're reading into things like a little bit too much, aren't we?
Yeah, just a bit, I guess. I'm sure when they go back into training, we'll get a clearer picture, hopefully, in the next day or two, who the assistant manager is, and then we'll see.
We never
Yeah.
know. He could be on the plane right now.
Yeah, sorry, Reese, go ahead.
We never know. He might be on the plane right now.
Yeah, exactly. He could be. And, you know, Reese, obviously, you know, you're a person that absolutely loves the heroes that have seen us rise up through the championship. And now there's another one that's disappeared. Well, another duo that's disappeared. Must be heartbreaking for you, mate.
I feel like a broken man. I feel like when that goal got disallowed against Southampton, I feel speechless because I woke up in the morning and I saw that and we've accepted a bid for Aaron Ramsdale, and that I was like, okay, this is not real. And then I also see about Simon Francis's Andrew Surman, and I'm like, what is going on? Do we want to go down to League One football? Like, unless you have something in a week's time, we're going to have another relegation scrap because this is ridiculous. So we're missing those key leadership people in the dressing room.
It's quite a tricky one. If you've got your TV on in the background, Reese, it'd be handy if you just turn it down for us because we can just pick up a little bit of audio. But in the meantime, Morgan, it looks like you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I wanted to go a bit back to what Richard was saying, if that's okay. I thought that was quite interesting to see what you were saying. And I think the fact, I don't think people expect us to, people were always going to expect changes to happen if we did go down to the Championship. But I do think that we do need to be careful because so within the last, 10 or so days, we haven't just lost a manager, we lost our best ever manager. We haven't got an assistant manager lined up. We lost remarkably 2-3 of our best players now through Simon Francis and Nathan Ake. Okay, people's opinion about Surman, but he brings the experience and the leadership, and that's key to a dressing room. So I think it's really important to remember, although the changes did need to be made, we don't want to make all these changes and, as Reece said then, go and have like a relegation scrap, because next season I think we need to be pushing for playoffs at the very least to get back into the Premiership. And without trying to sound too negative, we don't need to make a load of changes, we just need to make the correct changes. And I think when I look at Twitter, I'm linked to people, Bournemouth are linked to people like Howie Wilton. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, so that's up in the air. I don't think Bournemouth are necessarily making the correct decision on... I think we're rushing it too much, if I'm honest with you. And it's quite concerning when we head into a Monday morning, when we're considering that we're going to probably lose another 3-4 players next week, which is kind of a massive concern. And we need to start investing. The season isn't long away. We're literally a few weeks, and we're back in pre-season training tomorrow. So, yeah.
But, you just said we're rushing it. But you've also, in the same breath, said that we need to rush in terms of the fact that the season's only 4 weeks away.
Yeah, no, what I mean is, I think we need to get the correct signings, but I don't think we need to rush and try and lose all our best players. Do you know what I mean? I just Googled before we came on air to see when Simon Francis joined. 2012, Simon Francis. I'm not sure about Andrew Surman, but 2012, and we're now in 2020. That's 8 years he's given us. 8 decent seasons through League 2 and League 1, up to the Championship and then into the Prem. And he's a key player to AFC Bournemouth. And I look at our back four right now. You look, okay, next season you've got Cook, maybe Lloyd Kelly if he does stay, Rico, and maybe Adam Smith. What if any of them, what if they get injured? Then who have you got? I think maybe, you got a backup for maybe Stacey? And then, we're so stretched at the back, and we have had so many injuries, and all it takes is another season like we had last season, and then we have no one. So yes, we probably got youth coming through, but something's got to give, if I'm honest. And we need to potentially be making a few signings with the money we got responsibly, not wasting it all, because we're going to need some of it financially, but we need to be investing in another 2 or 3 players that are going to come in, fight for the club, and get us back to where we want to be.
Yeah, right. I'm going to take you out just very shortly, Morgan, to give others a go. However, Brad Singleton has been wanting you to give him a wave all evening. So can you give him a wave? One more? There you go, Brad. I hope you're happy with that. And also, Ethan says hi. Hello, Ethan. Hope you're doing well, mate. Have to get you on a podcast soon. Morgan, if you want to come back later, we're only going to be on for about an hour tonight, but if you want to come back later, we should have
Yeah,
room.
I'll be back. No
Lovely.
worries, you can't get rid of me. Thanks, mate.
That's Morgan, Scott there as well. And Richard, before we let you go as well, what would you like to be seeing next week in the world of AFC Bournemouth?
A bit more stability we've had over the last week or two. Obviously, we want to see a new assistant appointed. It'd be nice to get a bit more clarity in terms of who's definitely going to be leaving the club, and then hopefully start to hear some news about players that may be coming in. I mean, we are going to get that news, and the transfer window, I know the season starts in 4 weeks' time, but the transfer window I think doesn't end till October time this year, so chances are we'll still be bringing players in after we play quite a few games, and we probably will start slowly this season. The important thing is that we get the right people in to replace the people that are leaving. We don't rush into anything. I mean, that's the danger, because we've got all these people leaving at the moment. We all seem to be wanting things to happen really, really quickly. And I think we just need to take a slow, measured approach and get it right rather than rush at things.
Yeah. Fair play, Richard. Thank you very much for coming on. We're going to have Mark, your son, on tomorrow, and he is doing some amazing fundraising for the Dorset Children's Foundation. What's it? 1,000 mile running 1,000 miles in the month of August?
1,000 miles in 365 days. Yes.
Oh, I was about to say, not in the month of August. That would be impossible.
No,
in 365 days. Brilliant. And raising money for the DCF. And there's also going to be, Mark's going to tell you about it tomorrow. A little special something for anyone that is donating, a chance to win something. So we'll tell you more about that tomorrow. Okay.
Cheers,
but
Sam.
Richard, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Okay. So next we're going to bring in Phil and Ronan, but we'll just have some final words as well for Louis. I know that Kurt's got a bit more to say, so we're going to keep him on for a little bit. So Louis, who's the players that you really do not want to see leaving the club? We've had Ramsdale, which was awful. Surman and Frano, yes, it's sad. Yes, we're getting sentimental, but they were the same players that we were criticising not so long ago. So maybe it's not such a bad loss. We're all just kind of getting a bit tearful based on, them being part of the journey that we've all experienced together. But which other players do you think, no way, I do not want you?
Of course, Lerma definitely want to stay. And maybe I think Steve Cook may be more for sentimental, but he does help. He's quite good in defence, I guess. And I'm hoping maybe to get Stephen Purchase can come in as assistant. Be nice.
Yeah, well, brilliant, Louis. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate your views. Thank you very much. And Reese, we'll give you another thing to say, because we had a little bit of audio issues there. And Ronan, Phil, and Nick will be coming in very shortly. We'll bring Keith back. Reese, in terms of the assistant manager's position, no one knows whose it's going to be. Who would you be favouring as assistant manager? Because surely the news is going to be coming in soon.
Steve Fletcher.
Steve Fletcher?
Yeah. I quite like him.
Would you say that he's more of a coach, though, than a number two? Or do you think he could cut it in the Championship, which, to be fair, is a very competitive league?
I reckon he could, like he's got the leader role. He knows, like I know he's more of a coach than assistant manager, but I reckon he could cut it as JT's assistant, because they've got a bond, like the Eddie JT bond. I reckon they could conjure something up like that. But do you know what I find funny, Sam?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Do you know what I find hilarious? The
Yeah, go on.
vultures are all around Bournemouth, not Watford and Norwich. It's funny how all our players are uneven, but if you look at Norwich and Watford over there, no one's departed.
We've got very desirable talent and young talent, and everyone's talking about a fire sale, but the fact that we bought Ramsdale for 800,000 or whatever it was and sold him for 18.5, which I know people are talking about the value. Was it right? Was it wrong? We're getting, from what the pundits are saying, the true value of what we should be getting. And yeah, you're right. Not many players have departed them. But one thing is, who's going to come in, and we don't know. Are there any incoming signings that you'd like to see, Reese?
Q, I'd love to see Q.
Oh, mate! But don't you think it's well? Fair play. Reese, thank you so much for coming on, mate. We're going to bring in some new faces. Appreciate it. Right. So next, we're going to bring in Ronan, and we have got Phil as well. Ronan, your thoughts this evening, mate?
Emotional straight away, sort of, the old firm leaving. But don't think about it. I think they won't get a first team place. You've got so many sort of midfielders ahead of Surman, so you really wouldn't have seen him. We're going to save on his salaries, and Frano's probably a bit more of a surprise. The fact that he was our captain. And the rumours of Kelly leaving, we've lost Ake. Still not sure what's going on with Rico. So it does leave us pretty short at the back. Meps, we've seen him have the odd good game, but we haven't really seen him provide any sort of consistent cover there. Whereas we know Frano can do that job quite well. He made a few mistakes at the back at the top level, but at Championship, he's it's a bit of a surprise, that one. And we might have Daniel to go out the door soon as well if his fitness isn't if he can't prove his fitness over time. So yeah, it's interesting. Emotionally, it's a bit it's gutting. Like the loyalty of those who play for the club, play for the badge. But at the same time, it's end of an era, like everyone's saying, and it is. Who's going to come in and who's going to do the job? My only worry is the more change, the less stability, the more worry the Championship, and it can really go one way or the other now. And that is the worry.
Do you think, Phil, that we're getting a bit sentimental and maybe forgetting the fact that, well, I mean, you said it yourself on chat that 6 months ago we weren't of the opinion that we seem to be now all of a sudden?
No, taking over from Roland's last point there, we've been, leadership-wise, we've been in a malaise for the last 18 months on the pitch. Frano hasn't been playing. Cook, is he a captain or not? He's the most senior player there, probably not a captain. He's left us with three now. We got Cook, Gosling, and Daniels will probably stay, the fact that he hasn't been released on there. So you've got three more senior players in there. Frano's legs are gone. He's probably a League One at best player, unfortunately, now. It was pretty evident almost a year ago, and he's been living on sentiment for a year. Cracking right wing back, right winger, right back, whatever you want to say in his time, but it had gone. And I don't think JT is being sentimental about it. I think there's some link back to Burnley. When they went to Burnley, they had people like Jensen, their older players who had ruled the roost, just come down from the Premier League, had a lot of influence in the club. That was the undoing for Eddie and Jason at Burnley. Yes, they weren't given the financial backing that they were promised, but they couldn't deal with the senior players. I happen to think that Molesley was lined up as the assistant manager. He got a better offer. That's why there's a gap there at the moment on that. I love Reese's optimism, but unfortunately Fletch is a cheerleader. He's not a coach in any way whatsoever at the club, and he should be love him. Should be nowhere near a coaching position in the club whatsoever. There's a lot going on. We can't afford sentiment. We have to balance up the trimming of the budgets because that's a financial fact on that. And we can't have people who cannot hold their own in the Championship. The Championship is a tough league, and it's a pacey league. Frano would be killed in the Championship. Lovely guy, I'm sure. Great leadership off the pitch. He hasn't been on the pitch to do any leadership. We've had a leadership void for 18 months on that pitch, but And then hopefully something's coming in to try and correct that. That's been our problem. There's Rambo, vocal, not a leader. Boric, vocal, not a leader. There's a difference between being vocal and being a leader.
Yeah,
and there's a distinction we need to make between those 2 points on there.
Yeah, I agree. And so at some point, we did need to phase these players out. At some point we did. And I was
Should have been done earlier, and Eddie didn't have the ability, or he was caught between again. Eddie, I think I was at West Ham away this season when it was a shambles. I was at Palace away, it was a shambles. There were games at the end of last season which were shambles. Eddie, I think he'd gone at that point mentally. But we love him, but we didn't want to say it. A few of us knew it, and we didn't. It could have been different at that point, but we owed him that at that point. JT needs to go in his own direction, not be Eddie. And he has to do this, otherwise he's going to be always, well, you've got these guys hanging around who are Eddie's mates. He needs to do different.
Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in Nick Lee as well very, very shortly. But Gary Neville, we'll just get a view from you, and then we'll take you backstage because there's other people wanting to come back in, and then you can come back. Do you think maybe one of them is fairer than another? Because Andrew Surman, Simon Francis got done for pace many a time, and especially in his last few performances in the Premier League. I mean, he brought something to the side, but he often got done. Do you think maybe it was unfair on Andrew Surman, perhaps, because he didn't have a bad season? In fact, I think Tom Jordan in the ratings was debating on putting him in the sort of average category, but in the end he went into poor, just based on the amount of performances he had, and when he did play, he couldn't really affect the game. But do you think it's maybe more fair on one than another?
Yeah, and I think there's an argument to say we didn't need to get rid of both, which is probably why it's a bit more of a shock. I think Ronan and Phil have made some really good points there. Let's look at our centre-backs at the moment. We've got Lloyd Kelly, who's played 6 games coming back from a long-term injury. We've got Steve Cook, who struggled with injuries this year and likes to dab a bit as a goalie. Okay, we've got Chris Mepham, who's on a long-term injury and was taking injections to try and be fit for the post-lockdown. Okay, and we've got Jack Simpson. I can't get my head around it. I mean, yes, Francis's legs had gone. That's why he got shifted into centre-back, because he was constantly getting found out at right-back. Now, for me, he can still cut it in the Championship. He's not a starter, obviously, but what he is a squad player that, if we need him, can come in there and do a job. We look at players like Richard Keogh for Derby, never the greatest centre-back, but he was good enough to play for Derby, and there's many a time when they made a playoffs. For me, he still does a job. I mean, as I said, now we've probably had an hour to digest it. We probably could have kept one. Getting rid of both of them doesn't make sense to me.
Sorry, Kurt, but what is not a starter but can still do a job? If you're going to be in a squad, you need to be able to start a game and play a game.
What I mean is, if you've got everyone fit, he's not your first 11, but it's a 46 grilling Championship season.
But
where
they still have pacey forward central. They don't just have them on the wings.
But that's where you have to be clever. That's what. Not every centre back's quick. Francis will know that. He has to position himself a lot better as a centre back now, because he's not got the legs. That's what centre backs have to do when they lose their legs. Richard Keogh, I'll go back to him, is not a quick centre back, but he's played for Derby County for many of a year until he obviously got sacked. But he played for many of a year for Derby County and got into many playoffs. Not the greatest defender, but he'd done a job for them.
I think these changes are hinting at a change of system in the way in which we're going to play. Surman was the archetypal recycler. He didn't have the pace to get forward, but he was cracking at getting the ball and recycling when we lost possession. I think we're going to have to play a more active game now. There's many times for the last 2 years I've watched Eddie come out and say we were very passive from the start and we'd let them have the ball too much. And he said that. I've lost count of the times we were very passive from the start. Again. Now, that's a managerial issue. If you're continually passive from the start, you're picking the players to play that role. So he's getting rid of those players. I think we're going to be playing a more. I think we're going to go slightly more direct. than this. I don't think you can fit Surman into a more direct style. It's going to be more rumbustious in the centre of midfield if you're leaving Gosling in there but letting Surman go. I don't think you can pick Francis and Cook as centre halves in the Championship. Lloyd Kelly generally, for when he played for England, played on the left side of a back three on there, so it may be hinting at perhaps going to switch to a back three. Stacey might fit onto the right side of a back three. He's big enough, strong enough to do that. And then you can fit Adam Smith in the right back position. So there's options there. I think Stacey will tuck inside, but there's a lot going on here. I think we need to give it a little bit of time and not get overwrought and stressed about. A couple of great players that they have been for us, but they're getting to their mid-30s, late 30s, and when you go down to the Championship, you've got to make these decisions, and many clubs do. And we are very much more attached to these players than other clubs are because they go through managers like Watford do, some other clubs, and they haven't been with us through the journey, in inverted commas. And it is a big change time, but we just need to be a bit more relaxed about it, I think, and just see what comes out. And let's judge it in 4 weeks' time when we start and see what style of football we're playing, what sort of formations we're playing. I think we'll go a little bit more direct. I think there'll be a little bit less reliance on wingers, which Eddie was bound to. Hopefully, if we go with wingers, they won't be inverted wingers all the time. And we can have a bit of variety on that, which generally gets you more success in the Championship on there. So let's see what happens. But I disagree. I respect your opinion, but I disagree that Frano could play at centre half in the Championship. I think that once your legs have gone, you can't hide inside in the Championship. If you're playing 40, it's a league where they get at you on there.
Do you know what it is, Phil? It's the unknown now, isn't it? It's the massive question mark. Yeah. Now, if we were letting Surman and Francis go, but we still had Eddie as manager, I'd be less comfortable that we'd be absolutely fine. What we don't know yet is what JT can do in regards to bringing in players. We don't know who he can attract. Now, if we end up with some 18-year-old players that have never played in the Championship on loan, that's, for me, as dangerous as letting Simon Francis go, because the Championship does not give you any relaxing. Okay,
it's absolutely dangerous at the moment. It's absolutely dangerous. We're in a dangerous position as a club because we haven't got the legacy, we haven't got the financial clout to attract players that some of the other clubs have. We've got to be cute about it. Hopefully, they know what they're doing, and you've got to trust that because we can't influence that. And we're only speculating from afar.
I hope you're right, Phil. But where I'm coming concerned is we haven't been able to see Tindall try and go into that market yet and see what he can pull out of it. And that's why we're letting go of two players that not only bring leadership to our squad, but they bring experience and they know they've played in the Championship for 2 years. So if we
had in the Championship a lot of seasons and don't go beyond that. So they're Championship players. There are a lot of Championship players around. There are a lot of League One players who might be more progressive than Championship players. If you look at some of those big clubs in the Championship, there's a lot of players that have been trapped there for many years, and no one picks them up because they're not actually that good. They get the odd game on telly, and they have a couple of good games, but then they go 8 games without doing anything, and then they look good again for a couple of games. That's what happens in in the Premier League. You've got to be on it all the time. That's the only reason you get a move. I mean, the lovely old Ryan Fraser's now handing out his CV to places, but it's you have to be on the ball all the time in the Premier League. Championship, you can hide. We only see little highlights. You don't watch games all the time in the Championship, really.
You've got to remember as well that the Championship is a very hard league to bounce back from to get back in the Premier League. And sometimes it's almost you've got to bounce back in that first season. The longer you're in it, the less chance you get out of it.
You get trapped. You look at Sheffield Wednesday, look at Forest, etc. And Derby, they're perennially 6 to 8. That's what Derby do every season. And I'm not judging that we're going to bounce back immediately. I'd love us to, but I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, we've got." I'm old enough. Bless you, you're younger than me, whatever. That we were really rubbish years ago, and I've enjoyed the 5 years in the Premier League. I've loved it, loving going to grounds where we can, there's more atmosphere. But the Championship's not. It's a great league to be in, and I watched some of your away days thing there. From somebody who lives in the Midlands, you were totally wrong with some of the away days thing. But hey, it's like on there. It's a cracking days. But I've been to the leagues. I've been to it was Don Valley Stadium that Tom was having a problem with guessing where Rotherham played when Eddie first took over. There's all these sort of things. Well, that lovely carpet they had at Don Valley Stadium in the lounge there, but for the toilets, that was great. But I mean, to the leagues, let's not, I would love to be back in the Premier League, but we need to get this perspective in and not have melodrama over a few older players going. We've got a lot of older players going in their time. I mean, Willow could probably still block up an end. He would have cricket on there. We won't bring him back, will we? So it's that perspective in there. I'm just trying to add a little bit to.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to do some rolling subs now. So we're going to rotate a bit. Phil, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem, you're welcome.
Really appreciate your views. Kirk as well. If you want to come back in a bit, we're going to bring in some new faces, if that's cool, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
See you shortly. And so, standing by, Craigie Carragher. He's here.
I had to put a couple of E's because the thing is if I just put Craig, I think, it wouldn't sound Scouse, would it?
It wouldn't work. Neil Whedon's here as well. And also we've got Nick Lee as well. It looks like you paid your internet connection now, Nick, and everything's working, is it?
I've had a nightmare, so if you can't hear me, I apologise. Can you hear me?
No. Yeah, no, I can hear you, mate. Last time I saw your face, we were in Pop World in Swansea having a great time.
Loved it. That's the only good thing about relegation, isn't it?
I know, exactly. We're going to do it again. Can't wait. Nick, hearing the departures over the last 48 hours, 3 players that have left the club, 1 a rising talent, and 2 arguably in the twilight of their career. But how are you feeling about it?
I think Rambo is obviously the biggest loss out of all of them. But I think from a business point of view, £20 million profit. I think that's that's good business. We've got Travers, who's up and coming. We've also got Begovic, and I think a lot of people haven't really spoken about Begovic. That yes, he wasn't particularly great, but he's gone away, he's come back. JT says fresh start. He's hugely experienced. He can do a job in the Championship. The pair of them working together. If he leaves the club, if Begovic goes, then I think we definitely need to be looking to be bringing in another keeper. I think with the 2 who left today, I think there's a lot of room for sentiment for them. And I hear all the arguments for and against. But I think we've really got to judge what the club are doing by the start of the season. So they've let these couple go, but we need to work out who's going to be coming in. So he hasn't made any signings yet. And Ake's gone. All the best to him. Fantastic servant, fantastic player, and he really deserves his move. But let's not forget that potentially there's some people coming in, and we really hope there's people coming in. And I think they'll people talk about experience as well. Today on Twitter, getting mad over Dwight Gale and Matt Ritchie. If those 2 players were to come in, for example, Matt Ritchie's a born leader, isn't he? And those 2 players leaving potentially gives another player the chance to step up. Some of those people who may have been a little bit suppressed by some of the stronger, the favourites, dare I say it, in the club. Now with them leaving, it's a chance for somebody else to step forward. People like Lewis Cook, for example. Surman's going, but we've had Opora, who's had a fantastic season out at Watford. People talk about Jack Simpson and the talent that he's got. Well, now's the chance for him to step up, isn't it? So I think the club's in transition. We were criticised for our defence record. We've got rid of one of our stalwart defenders. So there's bound to be this reaction because of the nature of the fact that these 2 have been around the club for so long and they've been cracking servants. But we do need to be looking to the future now. Yes, they could do a job, but we've got to be forward-facing, I think.
I agree with that. And Craigie, I think a lot of people are obviously feeling a bit sort of, they don't really know what's happening because all these players have gone and there's not been anything through the door the other way around. And I think that's just maybe our fear that there doesn't seem to be any sort of arrivals at the moment.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I thought we was going to sell before we actually bought players in. To be perfectly honest, I'm not happy with today's news. I think Sirs would have done a job against certain teams in the Championship. I think if we had stayed up, I think it would have been the right decision with Frano. However, seeing as we've gone down, I think Frano could do a job in the Championship. And I think that's what I'm disappointed about they're two players that have been there, done that, got the T-shirt, got us out of that league, and they've gone out the door. You know, I bloody hope Steve Cook doesn't follow him, because
yeah. I mean, he's. I certainly hope not. I wouldn't have thought so, because
no, I don't think so.
He is instrumental. But Neil, you've been a Cherries fan for a decade. Have you known? Well, no, that's a stupid question, because you have known starts to a season, or in the close season where it's been certainly more uncertain than this. Sometimes we've not even known whether our fixtures could be fulfilled. So in the grand scheme of things, we're still in a healthy position when we're getting 60 million through the door for the exit of 2 players. But how are you feeling this weekend after seeing the news?
Well, I think it was to be expected, wasn't it? I know one thing that I was thinking about as I was just waiting to come on is that we've never been in this situation before, where we've had to make such a huge adjustment to our squad. We've never had this sort of reduction in our income. And I would just think about the players like Offerball, like Kilkenny, who are now going to come in, hopefully, and will get their opportunity, because they couldn't get their opportunity in the Prem. And if we were in trouble and we were short of players and we had to bring Surman or Frano in, okay, they could do a job, but it's not ideal, I don't think, to have players who, when they did play, people were saying, well, for example, what's Lewis Cook going to do to get a game when Surman's coming in to play in his place? So with all this doom and gloom that we're hearing, I don't think it's quite as bad as it seems. We've got to set off on the journey of next season at some point. And if that's with a freshened up squad, even if it means bringing in some of the junior players to replace the senior players, and if JT thinks he can train them on, then as far as I'm concerned, then it's got to be the way to go, because we've got to cut our costs.
Do you think isn't it? Yeah, go on, Nick.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's a really good point. We are in transition. We've been relegated. We've got to face facts over that. We know that other players are more than likely to leave the club. JT's going to know who's, where the interest lies elsewhere in our players, who's going to have to work with next season, and then he can fill the gaps ahead of that. Absolutely, there are some promising youngsters coming through that will have a chance to shine. They will have a chance to make their mark, and they will have a chance to develop. And I think that ties in with a statement that was made about young forward-facing squad. So I think we have to face the reality of football is a business, and when you're being offered £40 million for your best player and you're just relegated, you're going to take it. And I think that's more than likely to happen with a few of the others that are still in the squad. I think we've all got our hopes as to who we're going to keep hold of. But certainly with how the squad's looking now, I wouldn't be talking about relegation next season, even if we started the season with who we've got now.
Every player's got their price. I completely agree with that. And I think Nathan Ake going, we couldn't begrudge that. 42, was it 41 or 42 million? Whatever it was.
Yeah.
41. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Disappointed about Rambo going. I personally would have tried to keep him an extra season. I spoke to Kirk about that, and I honestly think if we kept him another season and we managed to go back up, I think he would probably have gone at that point, even if we had been promoted. But the thing is, his stock would go up. We'd get a lot more for him, and he's got a lot of time on his side. So even though, yes, it's a lot of money, and I think somebody put on Twitter that it's worth the equivalent, because of the sell-on clauses, it's worth about 21 million, effectively. I'm not a mathematician. I wouldn't have a clue where to start with that. So, yeah, I'm slightly disappointed that we've buckled for that bid. I think we could have probably got a bit more. 25 mil, I would have probably said, yeah, fair enough. What can we do? Especially if the player wants to go. He is a Sheffield United fan, after all. personally, I don't agree with what they've done. I think, give Sirs and Frano an extra year, just a year, see how they cope. I think Frano would have coped in the Championship. He's been there before. He's done it. Likewise, Sirs has as well. I think both of them will go to Championship sides. I know somebody said that they all go to Southend. No, Southend's too low down the ladder, I personally. As much as Mark Mosley would absolutely love them there, I personally think they will go to another Championship side. Maybe not one challenging for promotion, but who's to say somebody like Wickham won't come in for them, or Derby, or someone like that.
It could be that, Craig, that they if they stay with us for another season, the cost of their wages is going to be significant. If we release them, then they could join another club, perhaps, and it would be slightly less money. So we would have to pay a premium for them. And are they worth the premium? Because they're going to struggle to get into our side.
I think they'd have a significant drop in wages, to be perfectly honest. I think that would be part of the deal. And if they'd said, right, okay, no, we can't accept that, fair enough. But I personally think both players would have stayed. Meeting both of them in the past, they both got the club at heart. So I think, even if there was that big drop, they are coming to the latter end of their career. I think they probably would have still said, right, we'll give it another season. I don't think they'll get more elsewhere than they would here. What's quite interesting as well, sorry, just going off the subject with regards to this Callum Wilson deal from Newcastle, I'd actually accept it. I'd bite the hand off for it, because bringing Matt Ritchie back, he's 3 years older, but look at what he did a couple of seasons ago to us. And in that 2-2 draw, he was fantastic. And Dwight Gale, I think wasn't he promoted with West Brom, and he was promoted with Newcastle last time round when they got promoted. I think I'd bite the hand off it.
Yeah, I certainly would. But I mean, in terms of Frano and Surman, though, I mean, aren't these the two players that 6 months ago we were all saying that the legs are gone and they can't cut it anymore?
In the Premier League, Frano, I would say, most definitely. Surman still has a place against certain teams. I would agree with you to some extent.
Yeah, I think you're right about Surman. I mean, Francis, great guy, love him, club captain. And, it's sad that he has to go in these circumstances, but there are no other circumstances that we can get rid of him in a nice way at the moment. But Surman, though, I do think he probably did have something to offer. And it's, you're looking at who else we might be getting rid of, like Lerma, will his head be turned by any potential bids? And you think in a number of positions now, we could be majorly short, and especially if King and Wilson do end up going, which, obviously if that deal did go through, as you alluded to there with Gale and Ritchie, 100%, I would, absolutely bite the hands off. I think Wilson's been poor for a long time. I'm not saying I'd be happy to see him go, because he's been our top scorer, for many a season. But interesting.
Sam, have we got a few younger players coming through? Carl Taylor, Matt Butcher, Corey Jordan, these sort of people.
They are.
Matt Butcher off the West Southend.
Sorry, Butcher.
Yeah, sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, I have Matt Butcher's heading off to Southend.
Has that been confirmed?
I don't think it's confirmed. I think it's quite close.
I remember him playing, was it in a League Cup game at Birmingham a few years ago? I mean, I don't know where he's been since then, but he didn't look a bad player back then, but he was never going to get a chance in the Prem. So I don't know what's happened to some of these players.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that sense. That I think that there is going to be players that will come through. The problem is the Championship is a difficult league to just throw somebody into. It will take a number of bringing them off the bench and moulding them into to the team. Because if
But,
you start throwing players straight in, it's just going to end in disaster, really.
But if you were JT and you got assurances from some of the senior players who we've got at the moment, and they said, yeah, we're staying, then wouldn't that give you the opportunity then to get these younger players in, with quite a few players who will still be able to play in the Premier League?
Yeah, but we need to bed them in slowly, though.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think Kilkenny's a really good shout. He's a really exciting young player, and yeah, he wouldn't have got a shout in the Premier League. However, in the Championship, we'd like to hope that he'd be brought on and given his chance.
Definitely.
I think
pre-season last year, he was great, wasn't he? Kilkenny.
He was, yeah, he was
outstanding.
good. And I think again, we've touched on someone like Richie coming back to the club. Again, I think we're all being very sentimental at the minute. Naturally, we're all hurting because of, some of our favourite players from the years are leaving, unfortunately. But we do have to look ahead and look at what's coming through and trust the youth and trust those young players coming through. I know everyone has their inside sources at the club and friends who drink with uncles and aunts, cousins and sisters, brothers. But I have heard that Lerma is happy even after the relegation. He's settled here, and the only driving factor for him leaving the club would be if he's being told that that's going to affect his chances in the national team. But otherwise, he's happy in the area, he's settled in the area, he loves the club. It is purely his appearances in the national team that were causing him to look kind of elsewhere. And I think if we can keep that the core of the team, the team that came down. I mean, Josh King would absolutely tear up the Championship, but let's all be completely frank about it. He's far too good for the Championship, and more than likely he will go. I agree, Wilson, been a fantastic player in the past, hasn't quite looked the same player of late. If we get a good offer for him, I'd be taking that. I think Sam Surridge in the Championship next year, even with Solanke, up top, Solanke was showing some promise towards the end of the season. I'm sure Solanke can score some goals in the Championship, and the pair of them, could look good together. I think they need a number 9. I think lots of people talk about Lyle Taylor, potentially a troublemaker from what you hear, if you believe that. But he was on a free transfer. I think we need somebody like that who is that proven.
He's gone to Forest. He's gone to Forest.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. For somebody to come in, and people are talking about Dwight Gale. Now we've been linked with Dwight Gale before when he was at Palace, and as Craig quite rightly said, he's been promoted a couple of times. He's been top scorer in the Championship, and for me, he kind of fits that bill of that number 9. You put the three of them as kind of striking options up, and for me, there's enough goals in there to give you a really strong push at the top end of the Championship.
Yeah, brilliant. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate making your back of the net debut, and see you in Pop World.
Told you I'd come on.
Yeah,
good man. Yeah, mate.
Cheers, buddy. See you later on. And also Neil Whedon as well. Appreciate your thoughts tonight, mate. And
cheers, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you again soon.
See
I'm absolutely certain. Yeah, thank you very much. That was Neil Whedon there. And so what we're going to do is we will bring back some people who've been waiting to close the show, because I don't think there's a lot that we can really say more than what we have. But we'll bring back Phil, who's been standing by, Keith, of course, Gary Neville as well, Morgan, and also Ronan as well. So we're going 7-way with this. And Phil, you've been hearing a lot of thoughts about them two leaving the club this evening. And, like you said, early on, it's a case of, 6 months ago, we said one thing about them, but now we're getting all, sort of reminiscent. But if we do want to go in a new direction, why not now? Is it just the case of no one else coming in?
When times get hard, you do tend to reach for your comfort blanket. And I think that's what Frano, Daniels, they were Eddie's comfort blanket in a certain extent. Bringing back Pugh is a comfort blanket. Talking about Richie is a comfort blanket. Dwight Gale will be a good move, but who's going to pay half his wages? And Newcastle's going to pay half his wages. He's not going to want to take a pay cut from what he's on at the moment. So it's about financing. If you are going to get a top Championship striker, and the same as Graben's a top League One striker, etc., you've got to finance those wages. So are we freeing up space for that? But it's going to take a couple of weeks to spread out, and to evolve on that point. I think we just need to look at it over a longer term and say, right, time will judge Jason on that, and time will judge the club on that, and that's the way it's going to be. That's the closing point.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Go on, Craig.
Personally, I don't think Richie is a comfort blanket. Richie will, he's a fantastic pro. He will be a fantastic asset at this level, back in the Championship.
But he left us for higher wages.
And he's only 30.
Yeah. I personally think I'd jump at the chance to bring Matt Ritchie back. I'm actually really excited about that. I'm more excited about that than Callum staying.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it happens, it would be nice. Ronan Fitzgerald, who's been, very patiently waiting in the background. Have there been any thoughts, any opinions that you've been listening to tonight that have made you sort of change your opinion at all?
I think everyone's got the same sort of opinion, especially sort of hearing Neil there, and then obviously what Craig was saying. We can't bring players in till we know who's staying or who's leaving, and then you look at who has left. Like we knew Ake was going. We've got cover in Kelly if he stays, but is he staying? But yeah, if the players that we've got remaining at the moment stay in the club, and with the youngsters, I mean, Aforba pre-season for me was standout, even ahead of Kilkenny, who looks promising. But yeah, those players will have an opportunity. Surridge looked like he was just scoring every game he came on. So there's a real exciting squad of players there. With Callum and King, if they go, then so be it. They didn't really want to be at the club last season. So we need that sort of fresh feel. And Marcus Gale would definitely do that. I personally can't see Richie and Gale coming back because the cost of their salaries would be the same, if not more, than Callum Wilson. And why, Gale's got up to the Premiership. Why would he's had a taste of it? Why would they want to come back down a level? And the same with Richie. They're at the end of their season, end of their careers. Yeah. They want to play at the highest levels for as long as possible. I just can't see that happening. I really can't. But yeah, I welcome them both back. But for the right money, I just don't think it's really realistic. So I don't know whether it's just a rumour. I can't see it. I think Wilson could go to Newcastle and we'll take the money. But I just don't see those players coming back in return. I think that's my opinion. But I actually feel. It's a bit roller coaster. Every day we think we're going to have more news, more players leaving. It's going to happen, and it'd be really exciting who does come in. And I think, like you say, now is the time. And so we've got a great squad there, and it's just for me is that stability. And I think having the Frano and Surman in there, even is just sort of shoring things up and giving that stability and support the players. But we don't know. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know who's coming in.
Just on that point, Ronan, that you've made there about Gale and Richie, and it's a valid point. Would they really want to drop back into the Championship? However, they might not have the choice. Do they want to sit on the bench at Newcastle? What's Newcastle's plans? We're soon to find out. But would they rather sit on the bench at Newcastle, or would they rather be playing, 90 minutes? Week in, week out for ourselves. I think Matt Ritchie probably would do. Of course, Dwight Gale hasn't been here before. So it's, it's really up to him. But I think Matt Ritchie would probably jump at the chance because I think he knows that his time is going to be limited on the pitch at Newcastle the next season.
Quite possibly. Go on, Ronan. Just if you want to come back.
Yeah, no, I just said it's anything could happen. It's proven. The only player I'm disappointed about is Ramsdale, but we've got Travis. We're disappointed about Ake, of course, but we've got Kelly. And Frano and Surman were never going to be first team players, so we haven't lost that first team, starting team for the beginning of the Championship. So. At the moment, we're not really heavily weakened other than Ake. It's we just don't know what's around the corner. We don't know who they're talking to, which players, and what salary they got at the end of it to bring in. So we've all got to stay really positive. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of news this week and the following week of who's going to be assistant manager. There's going to be some real positive stuff coming, and we just got to move with it. And say the transition started last season. It's not now. it started last season with the players that came in that didn't cut the mustard, and the injuries didn't help. But the transition started probably 12 months ago, if not longer. And those transitions, it is not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be a few years. And will it be us going down to League One again? Hopefully not. I think if we can just, at the moment, I still think the stability and having too many changes, that's what worries me. I think there's some bigger clubs that are more stable that are struggling. I think it's the too many changes all at once. That's what concerns me, even with a great squad.
Yeah,
so I will take survival this season, honestly.
Well, I think hopefully we'll be okay. Ronan, we'll let you leave room now because there are a couple more people coming in. But anyway, mate,
thank
you for coming on. Yeah, really appreciate it, buddy. And Keith, I'll come to you, then we'll go back to Craig quickly. In terms of Ramsdale and potentially Callum Wilson, I mean, you can't blame them, can you? Because they've both got their designs on playing for England in Euro 2021. I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch for Callum Wilson, to be honest. Maybe not Ramsdale, and they're going to clubs that will arguably be probably paying them a bit more, and where they'll be playing against strikers like Aguero rather than what's that guy back in Fenway sort of thing. So they need to be testing themselves against the best players in the world, and those two players. I suppose you could say that we didn't really expect Ramsdale to go, but now you look at it, 18.5 million. It was probably fair.
Yeah, no, I think we've got to start to think about cashing in. I'm intrigued with what Phil is saying about is he going to change the formation. Now, there's the potential that we might move away from the wing play that we've been playing. Phil, do you think we could go to a diamond and have a holding midfielder, a deeper holding midfielder, the two centre midfielders, and utilise Billing more? And have, say, if we keep Brooks or if we get Wilson in as the attacking midfielder and utilising them to have less defensive responsibilities, is that?
Keith, I think we're on to a 4-3-3. I think the Championship's all about pressing the ball. We stopped doing that for the last 2 years, and we haven't done that for a while, and that's what made us a good side. We'll go away from the wingers. We just haven't got the wingers at the club to do that anymore. I think it'll be a three midfield and a three up front, and more pressure on try and get at the two centre halves of the opposition team.
Yeah, no, because I think that's something worth considering. Obviously, we don't know what JT is going to come out in the formation wise, but certainly, this is why the Matt Ritchie thing, if he's going away from that progressive wing play that we've been associated with, trying something different again, is Matt Ritchie the sort of player we want? Now, I love his delivery in, and I think he can do a job in that, but I tend to agree with Phil. We need to be pressing up more. We need to be playing a little bit more narrow. Stacey's really good bombing up and down the wing. Is there an argument for a three at the back? These are the sort of things, obviously, they're going to be talking about. But I don't think we could play the way we haven't been playing anything. Are we a counter-attacking team? Are we a pressing team? I don't know. Well, that's what's been...
Teams in the Championship are worse out of possession than teams in the Premier League. The Premier League are much more organised and structured. You can get at a team in the Championship. You can get at the back four. When we were in the Championship last, it was about scoring goals. And if you look at the teams that come up from the Championship, it's still the teams that score the most that come up.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with that. The change of formation, that could surprise a lot of clubs in that as well. And also, I like 4-3-3. I think that's the way to go rather than the 4-4-2. I think that's quite limiting. And that'd be quite exciting to see if JT, because remember, as a kid, he was under Wenger, and he would understand that possession game and the pressing game.
We flirted with 4-3-3 a few times this season, but Eddie always reverted back to type when the pressure came on. It was a default position, which was 4-4-2, which didn't suit us anymore. It suited us 2-3 years ago, but we'd lost that ability to press, or the willingness to press more than the ability to. I think there was a cultural willingness to try and change the team, and we didn't have the players who are culturally or mentally up to pressing anymore. And I think that may be a sense of, you look at Frano, you look at Surman, perhaps it's getting rid of some of those players who had gone the ability to press. And perhaps it may hint at a return to playing a bit more proactively and being on the front foot rather than being how unbelievably passive we have been in so many games for the last 18 months and inviting teams onto us and getting done so many times, or we can't keep a clean sheet. We put a low block in. But we weren't very good at it, but we kept doing it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And Eddie became that in the end, unfortunately. And we need to move beyond that. He was stubborn. Yes, very, very stubborn. And it was an undoing in the end, I feel, personally.
There's been a good question that's come on chat, actually, which I'm going to put to Kirk, and I'll go to Morgan after that, from Ed Caper, saying, relevant question. How does this squad compare with the championship winning squad? We'll come to Kirk first. It's very difficult to know what on earth is going to happen. Of course, we're hoping for a few incomings next week. But Kirk, what are your thoughts on that? Really good question from Ed.
Yeah, well, the difference with the previous squad is they run through walls for each other, didn't they? And this squad last year wasn't completely together. I think I've said many times there was like 3 groups in that team. There was players that were looking to move on instantly. There were players that had been there from the start, and there were players that had come in on loan but were going to go back to relevant clubs. So and it all came to a head on at Newcastle after the Newcastle game, apparently. Let's be clear, this is not sentimental from me. This is me trying to look at us as having the best squad we can to hit a really difficult 46 game season in the Championship. Sam, can you remind me off the top of your head, what did Max say in his statement before Eddie obviously went away? Can anyone remember?
Well, I know that he said he's committed to getting us back in the Premier League, and he did say a load of other stuff, but that was the line for me that stood out. I don't know if that's the line you want me to say.
Yeah, and JT came out and said that. I think it's a very dangerous game. And I said on many of the podcasts when we looked like we were getting relegated before we were actually relegated, that I was looking at some of this youth coming through next season, the Kilkennys, the Dobreys, he's gone now, and the Surridges. I was looking for them to come through. You can't chuck them in at the deep end, though, in a Championship, in my opinion. These need to come through in stages. If we think we're going to get promoted and make the playoffs, chuck in Kilkenny, Surridge is probably a bit more far forward, but Nandi and all these players, you're going to chuck him in on the first game. I think we're in for a bit of a shock. I don't think we'll get relegated, but Max came out and said we want to get promoted, and JT came out when he got the job and said we want to get promoted. Now, for me, having one or both Surman and Francis would give you stability in a situation that we're in.
Let me chuck in my grenade.
Go on, Keith.
I think it would be imprudent to ask with future planning. As I say, we're going to be still in COVID situation going forward. I think that's a misjudgment. I would be looking at with JT and the backroom structure, which I talked about in the last podcast. I'll be looking at the saying, right, we've got 3 years of parachute payment. Let's consolidate. If we're going to change the style of football, which is what I thought Phil was alluding to, let's bed that in and let's see where everything's rolling. I'm looking at West Ham at the moment, and they look like a financial basket case. And Newcastle were hoping for that sugar daddy. But is it? The whole thing is unstable at the moment, and I think, we obviously want to do well. It's not lack of ambition. But this might be the period of consolidation. Let's put some money in the bank. Let's get this training underway. We really, really got to be careful where all the chips are going to fall by the end of next season. That's my feeling. And I would have liked to have seen a development into the 4-3-3. That doesn't happen overnight. Or perhaps a diamond or whatever, JT's got in mind. And just look and say, right, this season we'll consolidate mid-table, maybe playoffs. Let's have a go, but then build on from there. We are asking an awful lot of the board to protect future planning going forward with, as I say, with COVID, any organisation. If you're Disney, you're in trouble at the moment as well. So you're asking our board to do that. And that's what I'm saying is this be cautious with our expectations.
Personally,
I understand.
Sorry, Craig.
Personally, I think we've got one shot at this. I think we've got one shot to get straight back into the Premier League. If we don't go straight back up, I think it will be a case of consolidating the Championship and making sure that we don't slip too far down that league. That's why I think that Frano and Surman should have stayed for this one season. Give it a 1-year extension, and then you have, like Kirk says, got that experience. We have got some good players, on the outskirts. The guy who was at Wickham, I can never pronounce his name,
Andy.
but but yeah,
the big man, yeah.
But the thing is personally, we have got these good players on the outskirts. Throwing them into the Championship is not a good idea because it is a very, very competitive, tough league to get out of. And I think we've got one shot of this, and having players that have already got us out that league. Yeah, we'll have Cook, we'll have a couple of others, but having those two players, Surman and Frano, especially Frano, because he's a leader. I wouldn't have kept him if we had stayed up. Don't get me wrong. I think he would have been the wrong person but he would be an asset in this league because he'd be able to control things, give advice to the younger players. I'm sure Stacey and Kelly have learned a bit off him as well. I think it's disappointing.
Do you think we're looking for reasons to be annoyed? I mean, this is because, this is a tweet that, Tindall has just done what you've all been calling for Eddie to do for years, which also buys into this new direction you've all been wanting. And now you're claiming it's a mistake. AFCB fans never change. That was Sam.
But the thing is we're in the Championship now, Sam. That's the thing. We're in the Championship. If in the Premier League,
I mean, I was looking at those playoffs. One of the playoff games, the standard. I was saying on a WhatsApp group, like, oh my god, this is quick and this is fast. And I don't think many of our players that are Premier League ready would even cope. I mean, even players like Adam Smith, who's like Mr. Reliable, even he would get done. And I'm thinking Frano and Surman. I mean, Frano probably more so. Like Andrew Surman, I think is a player that could cut it. Frano, I'm not sure. Craig?
You throw him into games where he would cope. So like the likes of Wickham, Rotherham, the teams that play a bit slower, the Derbys, the Readings, those sort of teams, you throw him into those games. You don't throw him into the likes of against Brentford.
Why do you don't throw them into that game? If you've got a back four that he's not in, you don't throw him into that game. If somebody gets injured in the warm-up, you've got to put him in against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, that's very true.
You can't just choose him to play Wickham or Rotherham. Well, I think we're going to be lucky next season. There's going to be Sheffield Wednesday on -12. There's going to be Rotherham. There's going to be Luton and Barnsley. Max couldn't say anything other than we're going to try and get straight back up. If he'd have said anything else, he'd have been slammed for not backing. He's got a lot of money invested in. Maybe he wants to hang around long enough to get it out. I'm just being a cynic on that, but etc. He couldn't say anything else. So I think that's a false statement to go back to Max's statement. I think we are looking at a season of consolidation. And I think
JT didn't say that. JT didn't say that.
JT is very, very well media trained, and he's just been appointed by Max. They're on the same wavelength on there. He's got to say what he's got to say. I think we're accepting we're going to be a Championship club.
Yeah, we are a Championship club this season.
Everyone's squad is going to be smaller this season because of COVID. There's not massive. There's going to be a lot of players unemployed coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks who aren't going to have clubs. There might be somebody who can pick from. Their wage bill is going to go down. Every club is going to be trimming its squad dramatically. And there's going to be a lot of youth team players coming through, so I think it's going to be easier to integrate some of those players.
But these two players would have been cheap. These two players would have been cheap options. They would have taken a pay cut. I'm sure about it. If they didn't, then fair enough. But these two players would have been cheap backup options who have already got us out of this league. Playing week in, week out, 5 years. Yeah, it is. Yeah, very true. But
Tommy Elphick is part of that. We're not bringing him back.
Can I just add it? Can I just add in there?
Yeah, go on,
I actually,
So I had the opportunity through AFC Bournemouth Community Sports Trust to actually speak to Simon Francis over the lockdown period on a Zoom call, and he was talking. Obviously, he's been out a long time since he's had his injuries, but he was very positive about a return to AFC Bournemouth coming into this season, and that was only a few months ago. I appreciate what you're saying, Phil, but you're talking like we lost Diake, we're gonna lose more, Rambo's already going. We're probably going to lose Josh Kin next week. Like, there's got to be some kind of end of it. Do you know what I mean? And like Frano, yes, okay, he's not going to play every game. Yes, he's not the best player anymore. We have to accept that. But what he does bring is a lot of fight and determination. And I'm looking at the squad tomorrow and thinking, like, what name do I want to get back on the back of my new shirt? Like, how I feel at the moment is I'm going to end up putting Scott or Cammy on the back of it, because I don't know who I don't know who I actually want to put on the back of my shirt right now, because I don't know who's the leader, who's my favourite player. Like, if Brooks stays, then it will 100% be Brooks. But right now, with by the way the club's developed in the last few weeks, I'm not sure who I actually have faith in anymore. And it's starting to get like to the point where we need to sort this out sooner rather than later. We haven't got an assistant manager. We got Jason Tindall. Yes, we have to back him. But it's starting to come into this like massive roller coaster, and we haven't got long. So I appreciate what you're trying to say. And yes, unfortunately, we're going to have to accept it. Like, we had to accept Tindall, Eddie, etc. But like, something's got to give. We need leadership. And right now, apart from Steve Cook, who came out and said we played like kids, who else have we got? Do you know what I mean?
I think
you're spot on. You're spot on, Morgan.
I think the leadership issue is because Eddie was so dominant. He crushed all team leadership there. There was no natural leadership coming through from developing players, because he was the emperor of everything. And now he's gone. It's now even more acute in there that there wasn't anything there before. To say we need this leadership, it wasn't being provided so much.
I think that's unfair. I think he, from what I saw on the official website, on the training videos that they did show, I think he was certainly grooming Frano to have some sort of role going forward. I don't think he crushed leadership. I think what he was looking for was leadership on the pitch. Yes, he micromanages, but he's an investor in people. Let's be honest about it. He has invested a lot of time developing these players to be fine young men as well as great players. Nathan Aki is a different. You were talking about leadership earlier. Nathan Aki is a different type of leader. He's not the shouty type, but he's a leader. But what you want is the characters when the chips are down, is to say, right, this is what we've got to do. Let's get back to basics. And there wasn't anyone doing that. Frano does that.
Do you know?
That's why we should have kept him.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Do you know this was always going to come? Eddie was always going to leave. We just thought Eddie was going to leave when he went for a bigger job. We didn't think he was going to leave on these terms in this situation. It's the same with the players that have got us to where we are. This was always going to come. But in my opinion, this isn't the right time. If we had stayed up, it would have been the right time in the Premier League. Right, guys, you've been amazing. You've been long servants, but we're now going to move on. We've just been relegated. Our legend manager has just walked out on the club. Well, not walked out, but mutually walked out on the club, and now we just let 2 long servants go as well. I'm concerned with the young players that are going to go back to training tomorrow and think, yeah.
What if Eddie was still in charge and it was him that made this decision? Would we all be thinking, brilliant, well done, guys. You've had a brilliant career. It's the right decision. Or is it just because it's JT that's made it?
No, it's wrong.
No. Do you know what it is? And I think I said it a while ago. Is that if Eddie was still in charge, I would feel more confident because I feel that there's a backup plan. Okay. What I'm concerned with is we don't yet know what power JT has in the transfer market in bringing players through. That's why I am concerned that we've just let Surman and Francis go. This is not sentimental from me. I'm not crying because they've been with us for 8 years. I'm looking at the current squad we've currently got. Was I not battered when JT got the job because I was told we haven't got time to start looking for a new manager? But now we've got people here tonight going, calm down. Let's just take it easy. We can build a new squad. But I was told 2 weeks ago, we ain't got time to look for a new manager with new plans.
I would have been against this if Eddie had done it as well. To be honest, if Eddie had made this decision, I would have been like, well, if he had done it in the Premier League, like Kirk says, fair enough. You've been great servants for the football club, but, you know, you're not to the standard, you know, that we need now. I would have been against it, seeing as we're a championship club now.
I mean, Mark Travers, let's go back to Mark Travers. What an absolute blinding game he had against Spurs. But let's be honest, he ain't played a lot of football. And the last game he played, he didn't have a great game. Now, I think he's potential and I want to give him a chance. But that championship, he might get found out. He might be brilliant. He might also struggle.
But at the start of the season, as fans, you know, we knew that, you know, Artur Boruc was, you know, effectively going to be number 3. And it was either Ramsdale or Travers. And it just happened to be Ramsdale. And his, you know, caliber, his stock rose considerably. What's to say? I mean, is it just fear of the unknown here? Because we're sort of, you know, it's almost like we are expecting our transfer incomings and outgoings like Jumping Jack's nightclub in the 90s at the City night, 1 in, 1 out. And at the moment,
I remember that place.
Yeah.
Dan, can I throw another name in that we haven't?
Morgan, 1 second, mate. 5 or 6 names that have gone out the door, and we just haven't seen any, you know, coming in. So. Are we maybe just like impatient, and maybe next week things will all be okay, and then we'll be smiling again? Or
I think the squad's
are there serious problems here?
I mean, I said, didn't I? If he's got a magic plan, and this week we're all going to be smiling with loads of new signings coming through, then you know this is all irrelevant from me.
Coaching positions to cover the team, haven't we?
But my concern is it's a dangerous game throwing in an 18-year-old or lots of young players into a championship league when you're chairman, and you can say Max had to say it, but there's not many teams that come down, and if you don't go straight back up, you struggle long term.
Bielsa struggled. So, if Bielsa struggles in this league, what's that setting out for the future? Morgan, what were you going to say, mate? Because I'm interested in what you've got to say.
Yes, Morgan, yeah, carry on.
Thank you. All I was going to say is we haven't. One thing I am surprised about, and no one else has mentioned it, so this makes me amazing. What I wanted to say was that we haven't mentioned Charlie Daniels this evening. Now, in my opinion, I don't understand. I think he's looked. Not without sounding disrespectful, I think he's been gone for quite a few seasons, in my opinion. So why we're not sat here and looking at? I thought. Francis would stay over Charlie Daniels, if I'm honest with you. I'm not sure why Charlie Daniels was on that. If you know, I'm not being rude. I can't see him starting ahead of Rico. So why Surman and Francis have gone compared to Daniel or Francis or all 3 of them? I'm not sure. Like, it'd be interesting. Kirk, could you give what do you think about that one?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
So in terms of. So obviously Surman and Simon Francis have departed this evening. Do you think Daniel should be on his way out, or do you think we should have kept Francis over Daniel? Like, it'd be interesting to see your opinions are fascinating. So, like, do you think that we should have kept?
Well, we're short left back as well, and obviously, as I said, when we look at the centre backs, Lloyd Kelly has only played 6 or so games from a long-term injury. Steve Cook has been picking up niggly injuries all season. Meppen's got a bad knee injury, and Jack Simpson hasn't played since the Liverpool game, I don't think. So when I look at our squad a few weeks away from starting, this is why I'm slightly concerned that we've let Francis go. I get all the valid points that his legs are gone, but I still think he can cut it in the Championship if we need him. And that's what you need in the Championship, is a squad. Not 11 players, you need a squad.
Yeah.
Here's a frightening thought, though. Are we keeping Daniels because Rico might be looking elsewhere?
Maybe.
It's the cover option. It leaves your options open on that position, just in case.
Yeah. Because I think if we lose Rico, then we really are. We weren't thinking about him leaving, but if he's looking now and thinking, well, I've done my time in England. I might want to go back home or go somewhere else in Europe. That's a distinct possibility as well. This is what the club hasn't been doing is reassuring the fans. The statements and what JT says go so far, but there's not that reassurance. And this is about press management and all that side of it. And what we're doing now is we're just speculating, because there's it's great to talk about this go up to the Premiership. What I think that needs to come out, and JT needs to elaborate a lot more in his press interviews, is not talk about him as a footballer and I love the club and all that. I want to say, what formation are we going to be playing? What's his philosophy? We talked about this last time. What's his philosophy in terms of how he sees fighting in the Championship for a start? Are we going 4-3-3? Are we staying with the old formation? What is he going to bring extra to it? I agree with the continuity of JT, but I want to see that now the fleshed out plan, not just in buying, but what sort of players are we going to be buying? That sort of thing. Without giving your hand too much away to opposition clubs. And that's what's causing all the unsettlement at the moment with all the fans. And I would imagine within the club, because they don't know if they've got a job tomorrow or not.
And Keith,
that's a statement of intent that we obviously don't know the kind of caliber of player we can be signing. And I think, it's just like fear of the unknown. It is it is a brand new era. But I mean, from a personal perspective, I'm sort of quite long in the tooth, and I've seen these situations before. And we're getting irate now, but like 7 days time, it can be a completely different picture. We don't know. But sorry, Kurt.
Oh no, I was just going to say to Keith, and you just alluded to it, Sam, anyway, is what we don't know is what those current players we still have at the squad are thinking. What are they thinking about? Are we going to have, are they thinking that they want to stay or they want to leave after the last couple of weeks? And as I said, we don't know what other players from outside of Bournemouth are thinking when we maybe approach them. Is it going to be of an interest to them currently looking at, state of what's gone on in the last couple of weeks? This is what concerns me more than anything else. And is this going to be a bigger challenge for JT in trying to bring in new players?
Yeah,
which is why it's important to have the club. Look, we're in a really unusual situation anyway with COVID and all the stuff that's going on. And I think the club should be sensitive enough to just give that reassurance, that regular communication, a bit more for Max, just to say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing. So we've got some idea. Look, I think in terms of buying players, I'll be looking at League One and League Two, because clubs are going to be desperate to get cash flow in, because they're going to be struggling going forward, a lot of these clubs. And it might be the time, as I say, to consolidate, cash in on Wilson and Kingy, put money towards the training stadium, and then do what we used to do. Let's get these old rejects back. Let's get these misfits that we used to get in, your Francis, your Daniels, and those sort of guys who are going to be hungry and are going to say, I've got a point to prove here.
I think
it takes smart, clever, looking at deep, what Brentford were doing, and I talked about them last week, and what they're doing is really clever at the moment.
Yeah. It's quite interesting for so many reasons, really, because you say that about getting into sort of players from League One and League Two, and obviously one of our main assets was having Eddie, who was a brilliant manager who managed to bring players up from that standard to the league division that we were in. And again, it's just another sort of unknown to chuck into the mix. We've got no idea what JT's like. It's going to be a really absorbing season, I've got to say. But obviously, when we're seeing all these players leave and not many coming in, I can understand the frustrations, and I can also understand the frustration of having two players that have served the clubs so well and could do a job in the changing room, even if it's waving pom-poms or whatever. They are players that have obviously got a voice and a lot of respect there. And you're sort of looking around at some of the, I wouldn't say the adult voices, but the ones that have got some experience and have been there, like the longest time. And, that list it's always decreasing, but, that was always going to be the case, wasn't it?
It is, and as I say, I came back, started with this at the beginning. Are they Eddie's voices or are they JT's voices? that's an interesting relationship. And as he said, you know, the Ricardo's ghost. Is it time to get rid of this because I need to stamp my authority? And that it is all in flux at the moment, and it's going to be great for the podcast. I can tell you that, but or not, as the case may be.
I was having a nice cozy evening tonight, and then I still. Oh God, here we go again. So, I mean, we're going to kind of wrap up now, but I mean, let's talk about what we're hoping to see from the club in the next week. I mean, let's be realistic. Like Phil, we'll start with you. I mean, what do you expect in terms of players that are going to be going out, but also what would you ideally like to see as well?
Going out, King and Wilson are gone. I'll be sad to see Brooks go, but I wouldn't be surprised because somebody will take a punt at the right money on there. I'm just hoping to see some progressive. You're going to need a couple of slightly more experienced players. However, it's being wary that there's a lot of championship clubs that have got experienced players there, and they're still mid-table championship clubs. So I think we do. Peter's right about the League One, League Two. There's some talent down there. There's going to be no cash in those clubs. There's going to be some bargains to be had, and it's whether we know those divisions well enough. Have we had our head in the Premier League and scouting Spain and France? Have we had our eye on Championship, League One, League Two? Do we know the leagues anymore? That's going to be the big question. Have we got, of all those ex-players we've got at our club, has any of them been looking at League One and League Two for what talent there is there? That's going to be the test in the next week or two.
Yeah, Phil, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Lots of people in chat were absolutely loving your views, so thank you very much. Interesting comment there from you, Deborah. Not sure who this was pointed out, but you are talking twaddle. You know what? That's an underused word, twaddle. I'm going to use that more often on the podcast. Fantastic. Deborah, thanks for coming in on. I've seen you've had all your opinions on chat. If you want to come and chat live, you're more than welcome. Not on this show because we are wrapping up soon, but next time, just go to afcbpodcast.com/take part. And we would love to have you on. Same goes out to Kate, who's been on chat, to Emma. In fact, anyone who's watching, you are more than welcome. Keith, wrapping up, hopes and expectations for the next week. Do you largely mirror what Phil said?
Broadly speaking, yeah. I think tomorrow and Tuesday are going to be key because hopefully we'll hear something about the assistant manager and potentially a restructuring of the coaching staff anyway. And that will tell us which way Jason's thinking. As for signings, as I say, I think there may be a structure there that they're going to sell first, see what they've got in the bank, and then look to see, right, who can we get in? But it's dicey because it is 4 weeks and then we're underway again. So let's wait and see. But unsettling times, and that's no doubt about it. And anyone saying otherwise is having a laugh.
Well, it wouldn't be Bournemouth otherwise, though, would it? We wouldn't be Bournemouth. Keith, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Keith.
See you later, boys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Superb to have him on. And Morgan, fire away.
Oh, I think I need to get a free transfer down to Vitality for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But being serious, I think this week's going to be the most key to AFC Bournemouth that we ever had. It's a matter of time before Callum Wilson says cheerio to the Vitality and hello to another team, where that may be, I'm not sure. And the same for Josh Kin. But I think recruitment's quite key. I think the first thing we need to try and do this week is sort out our assistant manager. Now, I'm always in the mix, and I'm sure Gary Neville could be as well. But no, being realistic, we have to try and sort that one ASAP. But no, I'm hoping that we'll come to some conclusions over the next week, and I really think that we need to sort this out as soon as possible, and we need to stop kind of without rushing. I think we need to come to the correct decision. Like, I'm still surprised that we didn't go for someone like Steven Gerrard, if I'm being honest, or John Terry. Now, I would have gone with Gerrard because I'm a massive lover of what he's done, but that's another story for another day. But we need to sort out what we're doing. We need to recruit a few people, and JT fancies me on the training ground, well, I'll go and pack my boots. Cheers, guys.
Morgan, mate, thank you so much for coming on, mate, as ever.
Thanks, guys. Cheers,
So we're left with Gary Neville and Craigie Carragher. And you know what? There have been a mix of interesting views, and we all want the best for the club, but obviously the news that's coming out of the club is not amazingly positive. And the only positive we had was a press release, didn't we? That basically that's the only positive we've had after Premier League relegation. That Tuesday thing from Max, and then Eddie went. And then JT got appointed, and I don't think there were some people that disappointed. Most people just like, okay, fair enough. I wouldn't exactly have called it a positive. Maybe you could say that continuity was, but since then it has just been a barrage of negatives. And I'm sure there's going to be more positive news ahead. Some rumours linking us with Harry Wilson and stuff. I'm not sure about that, but. Not for the sort of values that I've been seeing on Twitter anyway.
Oh, it'd be ridiculous, Sam. Honestly.
I mean, we've seen a lot of rumours, but we're all just in need of. I mean, for me, it's not turned into anger, but for some people, it looks like it is turning into anger, or maybe some distress. Maybe would be the best way of putting it. But for you guys, you're obviously hoping to see some kind of activity and some kind of statement of intent by getting some players through the door.
Well, I can't wait. Go on, Craig.
I think me and Kirk had a conversation yesterday over the phone when the Ramsdale news come out, and I think that's the biggest disappointment since Eddie left, because we both agreed that really we should keep on hold of him for one more season. All right, yeah, every player's got their value. If Sheffield United come back with a ridiculous offer, it might be a case that we can't turn it down. But 18.5 million, I think he's worth a lot more than that, considering what what Stoke were asking for Butland. I think things will start to calm down. I think Wilson will go. Personally, I think this Newcastle offer, if it is real, is a good one. And we'll have two very good players on our hands. One that already knows the club, one that has already got two clubs out of the Championship already. So I think that would be a good move. I think Josh King will go. It's quite interesting. I've tried to rack my brains around who has made the most money after going down from transfer fees. Surely we must be at the top of the pile already, and I think we'll still have a couple to go.
Yeah, you know what? Sorry, in the background, I've just been on Twitter, and Kirk, you've actually changed.
I have.
Gary Neville. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, just typing in your name on. It's like, oh, this user doesn't exist, and there he is there. So if you want to follow Kirk, it's AFCB Gary Neville, and Craig.
Can I do the same?
Yeah, why not? Craigie Carragher.
It was the final straw for me, Sam, getting that news tonight. I'm done. I'm Gary Neville. So, we're going to probably take in just under 100 million once all the players we think will leave, plus the parachute payments. If we can give at least one salary to Surman or Francis, I'm stunned. But I'm hoping that we can bring in some sort of champion potential players, maybe Ivan Toney, something like that. I'm hoping we can bring something. I still want us to go for playoffs. I understand there might be a season of consolidation, but I do agree with Craig. It's almost, we have got the one shot at maybe returning to the Premier League if that's what we want to try and achieve. But as I say, it's not sentimental from me. I'm just concerned about how quickly the league's coming round and the squad's getting thinner and thinner. And we weren't blessed with availability last year. So, and we've got 8 more games this season, plus earlier cup games. So,
like I said on Twitter, sorry, earlier on here, just like a 90s, Bournemouth nightclub where it is 1 in, 1 out. I'm just hoping it's just a big group that's left, and then we'll get a group in because we do need something, and not least, Craigie, the assistant manager position.
Yeah, I think it needs to go to purchase. I know Morgan mentioned Fletcher earlier on. But personally, I think Fletch is more of a coach. I think Stephen Purchase would really step up into that role. Just very quickly on the subject of players in, I've been banging on about him since the start. There was 3 players.
Can I get
yeah. You know, I personally think he is an absolute class act, and I don't know how much QPR would want for him, but I think he would be a better option than Harry Wilson, because firstly, I think he's a little bit younger than Wilson, but also he's such a talented player. He really will make things happen in the middle. And the other 2 players that we mentioned was Watkins, who I think might, well, I think he'll go to the Premier League, and Puskas. Personally, I think, you know, that if the deal for the Callum Wilson deal and the swap deal does go through, I think we might as well rule those 2 out. So we've still made a massive profit, as long as we don't lose anybody else at the back, because that's my main concern. We need to keep hold of Kelly at all costs. We need to tell Liverpool where to go. You know, if we don't go straight back up, then there's the conversation after one, you know, a good season from Kelly. But I think we need to keep hold of him. Steve Cook, the importance of Steve Cook now is ginormous. It really is. Well, I don't know what your views are on that, Kirk, but after today's news, I think that is massive. To his importance is gone sky high.
Well, funnily enough, I heard he spoke to JT today, and he wants to be #1 goalkeeper. That's what I heard. So
I think he'd do a good job, actually. You know, I wouldn't put him as #1. I'd put him as backup. But you know, just in case, you know, Travers decides to do something silly and get himself sent off mid-game, stick Cookie straight in there.
Yeah, and I think Cookie's still good enough to do a job, isn't he? And he's probably going to become club captain. He is picking up more niggly injuries as he's getting older. But we're obviously, it's a bit of a concern how Mepham's going to come back, because he was struggling with that injury, and they were giving him injections, and he still wasn't fit enough to play any of the games at the back end of the season. So yeah, it's going to be a big couple of weeks, and I think we're going to find out a lot more about JT and what sort of manager or power he has and influences he can have in strengthening our squad. And I'm really interested to see what JT can offer in that department.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And it was been announced in the last week or so that there's going to be 3 friendlies. Is that right, Craig? All against South Coast clubs, or Kirk? Do you know much about that?
I saw that one was confirmed with a South Coast club, and I think they were all. I haven't heard about 3. I had heard that one was confirmed. I assume they'll just keep it local. Maybe Portsmouth, Southampton, maybe a trip up to Brighton.
It could even be Weymouth, because obviously, you know, they're
true.
I mean, we don't know, obviously, do we? But yeah, it's been a very interesting weekend at AFC Bournemouth. So obviously, you've heard the news, but if you haven't, Aaron Ramsdale, a bid's been accepted reluctantly, 18.5 million from Sheffield United, and then Surman and Frano. Now, I know a guy. We weren't going to bring in any more people, but I know a guy that will bang the drum of Andrew Surman as much as possible. And why is he here? Tom Jordan. Hello, mate.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, good. It's, you know, in terms of outgoings, it's been awful, hasn't it? Aaron Ramsdale, spine of the side, and then you know, tonight the 2 players that were the heartbeat of the side throughout many of our seasons. How have you been feeling?
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. I've listened to majority tonight, and there's been some good views, actually, some good chat, and yeah, it's just sentimentally, I just find it so difficult. But it's an interesting one. I feel like we would have had, if we had extended their contract, I think there would have been a group of fans that would have said, you know, really, can we move on from this kind of thing? And we've let them go, and now we're talking about, oh, they could have done a job. I think it was always going to be a little bit mixed. And I probably would have appreciated both sides. Do I think they could have done a job? Yes. Do I think we've lost really, really key players going into next season? Probably not. I think it's more behind the scenes. I can't act like I know. But I would have thought there'd be quite big characters in the dressing room, Frano and Surman. And I wonder if JT's kind of saying, this is my team now. and I want to have my voice heard, and this is that new direction or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is me saying, you know, I'm going to not get rid of the old guys. I think, you know, JT's been part of it at the end of the day, but I think he's kind of saying, look, we're going to go a different way now. And yeah, but you don't know whether he maybe had a word with them and said, look, you're not really in my plans. You can stick around if you want, but you ain't going to play much football. And they've potentially said, well, I kind of feel like at my age, I could do with playing a bit more. We don't really know the ins and outs. It's just sad. I mean, to go from, you know, forget about relegation, to lose Eddie, then to lose Ake, then to lose Ramsdale, potentially, then Boric, then it's just like, oh, I can't. We need some good news.
Have me and Tom switched over, by the way? Because he's now saying, we should move on from them.
Definitely not scary.
I know I'm saying, no, let's keep them all. Let's keep them all.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you had asked me what I would have wanted to do, I would have kept them both. But I'm thinking in my head, is that's definitely not 100% footballing wise. It's also that sentimental side of it. But equally, like I say, do I think they could have done a job at this level? Definitely. I think they're both good enough players. But should we be able to cope without them? Probably. I think it's interesting. A few people said tonight, it's still that unknown, isn't it? I feel like it might have been you that said it, Kirk. Can't remember. But talking about potentially if Eddie was here, would have said, okay, well, I back him to go and, you know, fill them holes that we've left. We don't know with JT. We just don't know. So it'd be interesting to see what his plans are, whether he's going to bring up some younger players, whether he's got his eye on players in the market and kind of the people above him have given him the go-ahead to go and get these players. We just don't know. What I will say is at the back, particularly, and in central midfield, the two positions that we've lost, at the moment, we're quite strong there. You know, we do believe that a few players will go, but at the moment we're pretty good there. So we'll see. But it's just, I just want some good news. I mean, the Richie link's quite nice because, you know, you just think, oh, it would be quite nice if he come back. And I do think that is I cannot, there's no part of me that thinks, I've heard that Callum Wilson and Newcastle with 20 million plus Gale and plus Richie, that's ludicrous. Surely we ain't going to get that. That would be mental. I mean, I didn't even think about a fee. I mean, if you get I mean, in the Championship, Dwight Gale, not a lot in it between him and Wilson, in my opinion. And getting Richie and money, that would be crazy. I'm not sure how much I believe that.
Do you know what?
I can't wait to see Richie back here. I honestly can't.
I hope so.
I think Paul said as well. Paul sent me something earlier on Twitter that said that Callum Wilson's salary has been halved. So, because I was saying earlier on Twitter that I can't see there'd be many takers for Wilson, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the likes of West Ham and Newcastle will take a punt on him, but I thought his salary would be the stumbling block. But Paul seems to think that would be about 50 grand now. So, so maybe it can go through. But
well, I think I was saying to Sam the other day that with Callum, obviously only a couple of seasons ago, talking about Chelsea and teams like that, and now I'm looking at it going, he probably, he's been in the England squad, probably thinks he's too good for the Championship. But then I'm thinking, is there many clubs that would go for Callum? I think there's better strikers out there now, whereas a few seasons ago, looking at, for example, Danny Ings just being the top goal scorer in the Premier League, one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League, a couple of seasons ago, no one would have took Danny Ings over Callum Wilson. Do you know what I mean? And that's how quickly football can change. And now I'm thinking Villa, Newcastle, maybe, but it's still a punt for them. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Callum. I think King and Lerma will probably be two more that go. It just feels like players are going all the time, and there's no real murmurings with incomings, but that'll come. There's no way he's not going to bring anyone in. So
it's who he brings in, isn't it? That's the question.
Exactly.
We might have to wait until the players depart before we actually start signing again. And that's the annoying bit of it, really.
Time is of the essence, isn't it? I mean, God, it's not going to be long until it all restarts again.
The players are back tomorrow, aren't they?
Yeah, that's
they are. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. I don't know whether they're going to be doing those behind the scenes training videos, but I'd love to see who's there and what the kind of general atmosphere is like. It's going to be weird to see no Eddie, leading them out, and whether Purchase will be there as his number two or not, I don't know. I suspect that news is just around the corner, maybe, Kirk. I don't know.
We've got to get that nailed down now. We've got to get, that's been over a week. I mean, the only thing, and it might be controversial, the only thing I can think is that some of Eddie's backroom staff are maybe in conversation with Eddie, and maybe whether he's got anything lined up. I don't know. For me, I don't know why it's taken a week. I mean, I hope Purchase is number two, but that's got to come now. We've got to get that nailed down, and then we need to start going out into the market and bringing in, whether that's on loan, whether that's chopping into the League One or League Two market for the best players in those leagues. But we've got to know what the structure is and where we're going. We've got to have this by the end of this week. I mean, as I said about Eddie, I'm not saying that I know anything. You should, to me, some of his backroom staff have got to be thinking, are you taking a break for a year, 2 years, or are you thinking of coming back in 3 months if the job's there? Those questions I'm sure are being had.
If that is the case, how crazy is that? That he's left the club, yet he's still got ridiculous amounts of pressure on him to, decide what he's doing next. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case, and I would like to think that the players would give him a bit more respect and just get on with their own careers rather than hounding him to decide what he's doing next.
Oh, I don't mean the players. I mean like the backroom staff that you had.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Sorry. Not players. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, and I think it's going to be a busy week for all of us. If we're doing this podcast stuff, who knows? We will be doing live shows kind of as and when there's a major story. The assistant manager, does that warrant a live show? Probably not, but we will put a video out. But guys, got to say thank you so much for coming on. Craigie Carragher, once again.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thank you very much for coming on. And also AFCB's Gary Neville. Thank you very much.
Official.
Official. Cheers, buddy. And Tom, we'll have a beer soon, and we'll do another kind of list of some kind.
We'll do some sort of tier list of legends that have left and we're all crying about. I just thought as well that we've still got the official Harry Arter leaving. He hasn't officially left, but we've got to have that yet as well. I've got a funny feeling. Like I say, I don't know anything. I wonder if tomorrow, with the players back in, if JT will kind of almost announce to the players, "This is my number 2." And I just wonder, this is just me thinking out loud, I wonder if it hasn't gone public yet, because it would be almost better for him to introduce the assistant to the players first. And I wonder if maybe tomorrow afternoon we might hear that. I'm kind of expecting purchase. I mean, you never know. It could be. I'd be very surprised to think that JT would kind of be almost interviewing people. I would have thought he would have known, and then it would have been quite a quick conversation. Perchie, do you want to step up? Number 2, whether it's Fletch, whoever. So I just think, I can't imagine that being complicated. So I wonder if he just wants to announce it to the players first. But you never know. It might be a real surprise one. We'll have to do a podcast tomorrow night.
Yeah, we might have to. You know what? And you suggested this over a beer at the Rope and Anchor. If we're doing a tier list, what about a tier list of Back of the Net podcast contributors? God Neville, down to Poor, and you did say that Tiggs would be up there in God, didn't you?
Tiggs is God. I think I haven't seen enough of Jeff lately, but he's almost like gone up to like the when like someone goes on for a long time and then they just go up to the director. That's what it feels like with Jeff. But he's in the legend category. Tiggs is there. Who was the gentleman on the early doors that he had a nice little top on? I thought he's trying to compete with Tiggs here with a nice little fluorescent top. Something Jackson. Richard.
Richard Jackson. Yeah.
Tom, we're trying to compete with Tiggs here. I'm not sure about that. Tiggs is always up there for me. But that'd be a great one, wouldn't it? God.
You know what? That's could we realistically put anyone in Poor? Just you saying, but we'll decide what to do with that. Anyway, Tom Jordan, as ever, thank you very much, Malices.
Take care, sir.
Take care,
Cheers,
buddy.
mate.
Thank you very much. And there we go. Crazy weekend. More news undoubtedly on the way. Aaron Ramsdale gone, Simon Francis gone, Andrew Surman gone, Nathan Ake gone, Arthur Burridge gone. I mean, I could go on. But yeah, stay tuned to Back of the Net. And if you haven't subscribed, do make sure you do so. And if you haven't given this video a thumbs up, it really helps us. I don't really know how YouTube works, to be honest. I would never call myself a YouTuber or hit the like, or we want 500 likes or whatever. But apparently, if you give the video a like, it really helps us. So if you can do that, we would really appreciate it. But yeah, stay tuned, subscribe, and see you in the next video. At the Cherries. Have a good evening.